My name is Amanda Miller, and I'm 26 years old. Last month, my grandmother Eleanor passed away after a long illness. She was the heart of our family and the person I was closest to. I visited her every week, took care of her medicine, brought groceries, and spent hours just talking and laughing with her. She was more than just my grandmother, she was like a second mother. So when she passed, I expected at least to be treated with some respect by the rest of the family. But I was wrong. One night, I got a text message from my cousin Rachel. It was clearly a mistake. The message said, "Reading tomorrow at Harrison's office, 2 p.m. Mom says not to tell Amanda." My stomach dropped. A second later, another message came through. "Sorry, wrong thread. Ignore that, please." But the damage was done. I realized they were planning to read Grandma's will, and they didn't want me to be there. I sat at my kitchen table, holding my phone, feeling a cold knot forming in my chest. After everything I had done for Grandma, they still saw me as someone who didn't belong. I stayed up all night thinking. Part of me wanted to stay quiet and not cause trouble, but another part of me, the stronger part, knew I had to go. I remembered Grandma's last words to me just a week before she passed. She looked me in the eyes and said, "Amanda, I see everything, and soon I'll be making things right." I thought she was talking about letting go of this world, but now it felt like she had something more in mind. That morning, I called in sick to work. I wore a simple navy blue dress that Grandma used to love. I wanted to be respectful. I wasn't going to fight. I just wanted to hear her final wishes. When I arrived at the law office in downtown Boston, I saw my entire extended family already waiting. My Uncle Philip, Aunt Judith, cousins Rachel and Nathan, even distant relatives who hadn't seen Grandma in years. They were whispering quietly, and all eyes turned to me when I walked in. Aunt Judith stood up quickly and said, "Amanda, what are you doing here?" I replied calmly, "I'm here for Grandma's will reading." Uncle Philip stepped forward and blocked my way. "You weren't invited. This is for family." I looked at him and said, "I am family." Before anyone else could speak, the lawyer, Mr. Harrison, opened the door and asked if we were all there for the Eleanor Miller estate. Aunt Judith rushed forward, trying to explain that I wasn't supposed to be there. But Mr. Harrison looked at his clipboard, nodded, and said, "Amanda Miller is absolutely supposed to be here." The entire room fell silent. Everyone walked in slowly, but I could feel the tension like a storm ready to explode. I sat near the door, keeping my head high, even as my hands shook. Then Mr. Harrison began the reading. He looked around the room and said, "Eleanor left a clear will, and her instructions were specific. All property, money, and belongings go to Amanda Rose Miller." For a moment, no one breathed. Then Rachel dropped her water glass and it shattered on the floor. Uncle Philip stood up furious, saying, "This is not legal. There must be a mistake." But Mr. Harrison simply shook his head. "There is no mistake. This was Eleanor's final decision. I knew her for over 30 years, and I stand by her wishes." The room was filled with shock, anger, disbelief. My family, who had pushed me out, who hadn't even wanted me to show up, had just found out that Grandma had left everything to me. I sat there stunned, hearing Grandma's voice in my heart again. "I'll be making things right." When I was growing up, my life was very different from the rest of my family. My father, Robert, was Grandma Eleanor's youngest son. He was kind, funny, and a little different from his brother and sister. He didn't want to work in the family's big investment business. Instead, he became a high school teacher. My mother, Samantha, was a nurse. They raised me with simple values: help people, work hard, and stay kind. Every Sunday, we visited Grandma Eleanor at her big, beautiful Victorian house in the historic district of Boston. I loved that house. It had a big wooden staircase, a garden with roses and lavender, and old family photos on every wall. For me, it was more than a house. It felt like home. When I was 12, everything changed. My father died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. My mom was heartbroken. She had to work double shifts to support us. We didn't have much money, and life got hard very fast. That's when Grandma Eleanor stepped in. "Amanda will live with me part of the week," she announced. No one argued. She had a way of making decisions that everyone followed. From that time on, I lived between two homes: my mom's small apartment and Grandma's big house. At Grandma's place, I had my own room, fresh food, and most of all, love. She helped me with school, told me stories about her childhood, and taught me how to bake her famous spice cookies. We laughed together, watched old movies, and drank tea in the garden. I never forgot what she told me one afternoon. "You're like me, Amanda. You care about people for who they are, not for what they can give you." That sentence stayed in my heart, but not everyone in the family was happy with how close I became to Grandma. Uncle Philip and Aunt Judith didn't visit often, but when they did, they looked at me like I didn't belong. They had big houses in the suburbs, expensive clothes, and luxury cars.
They lived a lifestyle full of status and appearances. They didn't understand why Grandma lived simply, wore plain clothes, or volunteered at soup kitchens. They often pressured her to sell her house and move to a modern place. But Grandma always said, "This house holds my memories. I'm not leaving it for granite countertops." When I turned 18, I told Grandma and the rest of the family that I wanted to become a nurse. Just like my mom, I wanted to work in hospice care to help people at the end of their lives feel comforted and safe. Uncle Philip looked at me like I had lost my mind. At Thanksgiving dinner, he pulled me aside and said, "Amanda, you could work in our family business. Why waste your time on a job with such a low ceiling?" I smiled and replied, "I want to earn my own way." He didn't understand. None of them did. Cousin Rachel, who went to a top business school, once asked me, "But don't you want to be rich?" She looked confused when I told her that helping people meant more to me than money. As the years went by, Grandma got older. Her health started to decline, and I began visiting her more often. Twice a week, sometimes more. I brought her groceries, sat with her for hours, and listened to her stories. She told me about her own grandmother, one of the first female doctors in Massachusetts. She spoke about how our family's wealth started with her grandfather's invention of a textile machine. These weren't just stories, they were lessons about hard work, resilience, and humility. One afternoon, as we baked cookies, she gave me a small wooden box. Inside was a simple pearl necklace. "This was my mother's," she said softly. "It's not flashy, but it has history, and I want you to have it now. The others would only see pearls, but you'll understand their value." I was touched, not by the necklace, but by the trust in her eyes. Little did I know that small gift would later become a point of anger and jealousy in the family. When Grandma turned 85, things started to change more inside the family. Uncle Philip called a meeting at Grandma's house. He said it was to talk about her care, but when I arrived, I saw a real estate agent sitting in the living room. I was confused. Uncle Philip stood up and said, "We've been talking about selling the lake house." He meant the beautiful family property in New Hampshire, where Grandma had spent summers since she was a child. I looked at Grandma. Her face was calm, but I could see the tension around her mouth. "Has Grandma agreed to this?" I asked. Uncle Philip waved his hand like my question didn't matter. "Mother understands it's the practical thing to do. It's expensive and mostly unused now. She can't enjoy it anymore." I was shocked. "Actually," I said, "she just told me last week she wanted to spend time there this summer." The room went quiet. Aunt Judith said, "Amanda, maybe you misunderstood. Mother knows her limits." Then Grandma finally spoke. "I did say that to Amanda. I don't want to sell my lake house." The real estate agent quickly packed up and left. After everyone was gone, Uncle Philip came into the kitchen where I was helping clean up. His face was hard. "You always do this," he said. "You think you know what's best just because you visit more? You don't understand the financial reality." I looked at him calmly. "What I understand," I said, "is that Grandma should decide what happens to her own home." Then he stepped closer and lowered his voice. "Listen to me. You may think you're special to her, but don't forget who built this family's name. It wasn't your father. You're pushing your luck." His words stung, especially the comment about my dad. But I held back tears and said, "This isn't about money. It's about Grandma's choices." After that night, everything became worse. Uncle Philip started saying things about me behind my back. He told relatives I was manipulating Grandma, that I was only spending time with her to get something in the will. It hurt. I had never asked Grandma for anything. All I wanted was for her to be comfortable and happy in her final years. But his words worked. By Christmas that year, the rest of the family began acting cold toward me. At the holiday dinner, Aunt Judith left me out of the family photo. Rachel made comments about gold diggers while looking straight at me. Even Aunt Grace, who had always been kind, was now distant. One evening, I walked past the hallway and heard Uncle Philip whispering to my cousin Nathan, "We need to protect Eleanor from Amanda. She's trying to control everything." I stood there, frozen. These were the people I had grown up with. Now they were acting like I was some kind of threat. I tried to fix it. I sent emails to my aunts and uncles, saying I didn't want any of Grandma's money. I only wanted her to be surrounded by love and peace. Aunt Judith replied with, "We all want what's best for Mother." No one else even answered. Then came Easter. The family had a big gathering at Uncle Philip's house. I wasn't invited. I only found out when Rachel posted pictures on social media. In one photo, Grandma was sitting in a corner, looking tired and confused. I called her that evening. "Did you have a nice time today?" I asked. She paused and said, "It was okay, but they didn't make the deviled eggs the way I like them. And Philip's house is always cold." Then she added softly, "I wish you were there." I held back tears. "I wasn't invited." She went quiet. "You weren't?" Her voice was full of honest surprise. I knew then that they had kept me away on purpose and lied to her. Later, Aunt Judith created a schedule to protect Mother's energy. I was only allowed to visit Grandma for 2 hours on Sunday afternoons. But whenever I arrived, a cousin or aunt would just happen to show up too, making sure I never got any time alone with her. But I didn't give up. I found ways to stay close. On my days off from the hospice center, I brought lunch and sat with Grandma. Her home nurse, Maria, who cared about her deeply, would sometimes call me when Grandma was having a good day.
Maria believed I belonged there. She understood our bond. That final Christmas before Grandma passed away, I wasn't invited to the family party again. Aunt Judith sent a message saying, "We're keeping the holidays small this year. Mother needs rest." Later, Maria told me, "Everyone else was there, just not you." I cried that night. But on Christmas Eve, I gave Maria a small package to take to Grandma. Our favorite spice cookies, a soft shawl in her favorite blue color, and a photo album I had made with pictures from the lake house over the years. I wanted Grandma to feel my love, even if I wasn't allowed to be near her. When Grandma died in April, I didn't find out from the family. Maria called me, crying. She said, "She's gone, Amanda. I'm so sorry." I rushed to the house. Uncle Philip and Aunt Judith were already there, standing with the funeral director. "Oh, Amanda," Aunt Judith said with fake sweetness. "We were going to call you, of course." I nodded, but said nothing. The funeral was painful. I sat in the third row. Even distant cousins were seated ahead of me. I wasn't asked to speak. I wasn't acknowledged. Uncle Philip gave a long speech about Grandpa's business achievements, but barely mentioned Grandma herself. And as I sat there, I heard her voice again in my heart. "I see everything, and soon I'll be making things right." I didn't know what she meant then, but I was about to find out. 2 weeks after Grandma's funeral, I was in my small apartment preparing dinner. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen. It was a message from Rachel. It said reading tomorrow at Harrison's office. 2 p.m. Mom says not to tell Amanda. My hands froze. My heart dropped. I stared at the message, not believing what I saw. A few seconds later, another message appeared. "Sorry, wrong thread. Ignore that, please." But how could I ignore it? They were planning to read Grandma's will, and they didn't even want me to know about it. They wanted to shut me out, just like they had done all year. I sat down at the kitchen table, my dinner forgotten. All night I thought about what to do. Part of me wanted to just let it go. I had never cared about Grandma's money. My love for her was real, not about inheritance, but another part of me felt something stronger, something deeper. Grandma had once told me, "You belong anywhere I want you to be." I remembered that, and I remembered her words, "Soon I'll be making things right." The next morning I called my workplace and said I wouldn't be coming in. I put on the navy blue dress Grandma always liked. It was neat, respectful, and simple. I didn't want to look like I was there for money. I just wanted to be present for the truth. I drove to the law office downtown. My hands were shaking the whole way. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew I had to be there. I sat in my car for 5 minutes before going in. Then I took a deep breath and walked to the elevator. When the doors opened, I saw them right away. Uncle Philip, Aunt Judith, Rachel, Nathan, even Aunt Grace and her husband Tom. They were all standing in the waiting area, talking in low voices. When Aunt Judith saw me, her face turned stiff. "Amanda," she said, trying to sound calm. "What are you doing here?" I looked at her, keeping my voice steady. "I'm here for Grandma's will reading." Uncle Philip stepped in front of me, blocking my path. "You weren't invited. This is for family." "I am family," I said, looking him straight in the eyes. Rachel added coldly, "We mean family, who respected Grandma's wishes." Before I could say anything, the door to the office opened. A man with silver hair stepped out. He looked kind and professional. "Are we all here for the Eleanor Miller estate?" he asked, looking around. Then he noticed the tension. "Is there a problem?" Aunt Judith gave him her fake smile and said, "Mr. Harrison, there's been a misunderstanding. Amanda wasn't supposed to be here today." Mr. Harrison looked surprised. "Amanda Miller, Eleanor's granddaughter?" he asked. "Yes, that's me," I said. He checked his clipboard, then looked at the group. "Then she's absolutely supposed to be here. Please, everyone, come in." The room was quiet as we entered the conference room. It had a long table, leather chairs, and large windows with soft light coming in. I sat near the door, feeling every eye on me. Whispers passed through the room. "How did she find out? Philip is going to lose it. This can't be happening." Then Mr. Harrison stood at the front and cleared his throat. "Before we begin, I want to say that I was not only Eleanor's lawyer for over 30 years, but also her friend. She gave me very clear instructions about this will, and I intend to carry them out exactly as she wished." Aunt Judith interrupted. "Mr. Harrison, I think we should explain. We already divided most things between the family. We didn't want to waste your time." My face burned with shame as everyone looked at me. She made it sound like I didn't belong there at all, but Mr. Harrison looked confused.
"I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter," he said to Aunt Judith, "but nothing should have been divided yet. Nothing was to be touched until today." He looked directly at me. "And as for Amanda not being invited, that would be very strange considering the contents of the will." Uncle Philip leaned forward. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice tight. Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. "I mean," he said slowly, "that Amanda Miller is the only name mentioned in the will." A heavy silence filled the room. No one spoke. It felt like time had stopped. Then suddenly Rachel dropped her water glass and it shattered on the floor. No one moved to pick it up. "That's not possible," Uncle Philip said, his face turning red. "There must be a mistake." Mr. Harrison's voice remained calm and professional. "There is no mistake. This was Eleanor's final and legal will, signed and witnessed properly. She was of sound mind when she made these decisions. I stand by her instructions." He then opened the folder and began to read. "I, Eleanor Catherine Miller, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament. I leave all of my property, including my house at 47 Beacon Hill Avenue, my lake house, financial accounts, investments, and personal belongings to my granddaughter, Amanda Rose Miller. The room gasped. Everyone stared at me. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear the rest. Aunt Judith began crying. Uncle Philip's hands were shaking. Rachel looked like she had seen a ghost. Mr. Harrison paused and looked around the room. There is a personal letter from Eleanor that I will give to Amanda privately, but I will finish reading the rest now. I looked around at all the faces. The same people who had tried to push me out were now in complete shock. But inside me, something felt calm. I remembered Grandma's words one last time. I see everything, and I'll be making things right. After the will reading, no one knew what to say. The room that had been so full of whispers and judgment a few minutes ago was now silent. I could feel the eyes of my family burning into me, but no one said a word. Mr. Harrison gently closed the folder and looked at me. Amanda, if you'd stay a few minutes after, I have something personal for you from your grandmother. I nodded, still numb. The others got up slowly, their faces pale, angry, confused, or just lost. Aunt Judith didn't even look at me as she passed. Uncle Philip muttered something under his breath. Rachel and Nathan stormed out. The same people who thought I didn't belong, who had cut me out of holidays and family photos, were now the ones being left behind. Once they were gone, Mr. Harrison handed me a sealed envelope. It had my name written in Grandma's handwriting. Take your time, he said kindly, then left me alone in the room. My hands were shaking as I opened it. Inside was a letter. Just one page. My dearest Amanda, if you're reading this, then I'm no longer here, but I hope you can feel my presence, still with you. I've watched you grow into a kind, brave, and honest woman. You stood by me when no one else did, not because you wanted anything, but because you loved me, and I love you, more than you know. Over the last few years, I saw the masks fall off the rest of the family. I saw who came when they thought they might gain something, and who came simply to sit beside me. I always knew your heart, Amanda. That's why I've chosen to leave everything to you, not as a reward, but as protection. I want to give you the tools to live the life you've earned. I know you'll use it wisely. I trust you. And one more thing, live in the house as long as it brings you peace. Go to the lake when your heart needs rest. Share the stories I told you. Pass down the recipes. And never forget, you are the true legacy of this family. With all my love, Grandma Eleanor. Tears fell down my face as I folded the letter. I sat in that room for a long time, holding it against my chest. It wasn't about the house. It wasn't about the money. It was about being seen, being valued, being loved. In the weeks that followed, the news spread through the family quickly. Some tried to fight the will, but Mr. Harrison had made everything legal and tight. There was nothing they could do. I received cold messages. Some relatives unfollowed me. Others sent cruel comments. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to. I had already gotten the only thing that really mattered, Grandma's trust. I moved into the house on Beacon Hill. The first night I slept in my old room, I lit a candle in her memory and sat in the garden where we used to drink tea. The roses were blooming again, just like they had every summer. I held the pearl necklace in my hand and whispered, I hope you're proud of me. Since then, life hasn't been perfect, but it's been peaceful. I still work as a hospice nurse. I still believe in kindness over wealth. I started a small foundation in Grandma's name to support elderly care for those who don't have family to visit them. Sometimes I walk through the house and hear echoes of her laughter. And when I look in the mirror, I see pieces of her in me. My family may have tried to erase me, but Grandma wrote me back into the story in a way no one could undo.